David Hartley stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over the skyline. At 57, he'd spent 3 decades building Hartley Property Group from a single rental building into one of the city's most successful real estate firms. The view from the 42nd floor was spectacular, a testament to everything he'd achieved. But lately, the view felt lonely. His wife, Grace, had passed away 4 years ago. His son lived in Seattle with a family of his own, and David found himself working longer hours, not because he needed to, but because going home to an empty penthouse felt harder than staying at the office. It was nearly 6 in the evening when his assistant, Margaret, buzzed his phone. "Mr. Hartley, there's an unusual situation at reception." David frowned. "What kind of situation?" "A child, sir. She says she's here about the housekeeping position. She says her mother is sick today, and she came instead." David felt a flicker of something, curiosity mixed with concern. "A child? How old?" "I'd say about 5 or 6, sir. She's quite insistent." Security wasn't sure what to do. "Send her up," David said, making a decision he couldn't quite explain. "I'll speak with her." 5 minutes later, his office door opened, and the most extraordinary little visitor walked in. She had golden blonde curls that tumbled past her shoulders, wearing a blue-collared shirt and dark leggings. But what caught David's attention was the white apron tied around her waist, clearly an adult size wrapped around her small frame multiple times. In her hand, she clutched a piece of paper, holding it with the seriousness of someone carrying important documents. Her blue eyes were wide but determined as she walked right up to his desk. She couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall, but she stood straight, lifting her chin with a dignity that made David's chest tighten. "Hello, sir," she said in a clear voice that trembled just slightly. "My name is Chloe Martinez. I'm here about the housekeeping job." David came around his desk and knelt down to her eye level, something his knees protested but his heart insisted upon. "Hello, Chloe. I'm David. It's very nice to meet you." Up close, he could see the worry in her young face, the slight shadows under her eyes that no child should have. "Your assistant said your mother is sick?" he asked gently. Chloe nodded, her lower lip trembling before she caught it between her teeth. "Mommy has a really bad fever. She was supposed to come for the interview today, but she couldn't get out of bed. She was crying because she said we really need this job." Chloe held up the crumpled paper. "I brought her resume. And I wore her apron so you'd know I'm serious." David felt something crack open in his chest, that protective wall he'd built around his heart since Grace died. "That was very thoughtful of you, Chloe, and very brave to come here by yourself. How did you get here?" "I took the bus. Mommy taught me which one goes downtown. She takes me on it sometimes when she has to work." Chloe's voice grew smaller. "I left her a note so she wouldn't worry. I told her I was going to help." David's throat tightened. This child, this tiny, determined child, had navigated the city alone because she'd seen her mother's tears and wanted to fix it. "Would you like to sit down?" David gestured to one of the leather chairs near his desk. "And maybe tell me about your mother?" Chloe climbed into the chair, her feet dangling well above the floor. She smoothed the apron over her lap with small, careful hands. "Her name is Maria Martinez. She's really good at cleaning. She works at the hospital at night, and she cleans houses during the day. But one of the families moved away, and now we don't have enough money for rent." Tears began to roll down Chloe's cheeks, but she kept talking, her voice steady despite them. "Mommy says we might have to leave our apartment. I heard her on the phone with the landlord. She was begging for more time." The little girl looked directly at David with eyes far too old for her age. "I don't want to lose our home, Mr. David. I want to help my mommy." David felt his own eyes grow damp. He thought of his own son at that age, carefree, protected, never having to worry about rent or food or whether they'd have a home tomorrow. This child's courage humbled him. "Chloe," he said softly, "may I see your mother's resume?" She handed him the wrinkled paper with both hands. David unfolded it carefully, treating it with the respect it deserved. The resume was simple but neatly typed. Maria Martinez, 15 years of housekeeping experience, references from 3 families and the hospital where she worked nights. At the bottom, in careful handwriting, she'd added, honest, reliable, hard-working. Will do my very best for you. But it was the small addition at the top that made David's vision blur. Single mother to Chloe, age 6. My daughter is my everything. Your mother wrote that you're her everything, David said, pointing to the words. Chloe nodded, fresh tears spilling. She tells me that every day. She says we're a team. Her small voice broke. But I can't help her. I'm too little to work. I can't fix anything. Oh, sweetheart, David said, and without thinking, he reached out and squeezed her small hand. You're helping right now. Do you know how? You showed up. You were brave. You proved to me exactly what kind of family your mother has raised you in, one with love and courage and the kind of character that no amount of money can buy. Chloe looked at him with hope dawning in her eyes. Does that mean Mommy gets the job? David smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months. Tell you what, we need to call your mother first and let her know you're safe. Then I'd like to talk to her. Because yes, I think we can help each other. Chloe's face lit up like the city lights behind them. Really? Really, truly? Really, truly. With Margaret's help, they reached Maria's cell phone. The woman who answered sounded terrible, voice hoarse with fever and thick with panic. Chloe, Mija? Oh God, where are you? I woke up and found your note. Mrs. Martinez, David said gently, taking the phone. This is David Hartley. Your daughter is safe. She's in my office, and she's been the bravest visitor I've ever had. There was a sob on the other end of the line. I'm so sorry, Mr. Hartley. I don't know what. She shouldn't have. She came to interview for you, David interrupted gently. And I have to say, she made an excellent case. Mrs. Martinez, I'd like to offer you a position. Not just housekeeping. I'd like to offer you a job managing the housekeeping staff for all our residential properties. It comes with a salary, benefits, and an apartment in one of our buildings. Silence. Then, what? I don't understand. Your daughter showed me something important today, David said, watching Chloe swing her legs happily in the chair. She showed me what kind of person you must be, to raise a child with that much love and courage. That's the kind of character I want in my company. Maria Martinez broke down completely then, crying so hard she couldn't speak. David waited patiently, letting her process what this meant. Security, stability, a home, a future. Why? Maria finally managed. You don't even know me. David looked at Chloe, who was watching him with absolute trust. He thought of Grace, who'd always reminded him that success meant nothing if you didn't use it to lift others up. He thought of all the lonely evenings in his expensive apartment, and how this little girl's bravery had reminded him what truly mattered. Because your daughter walked into my office wearing your apron and carrying your dreams, he said simply. And she reminded me that the best measure of a person isn't what they've achieved, but who they love and how they love them. You've raised a remarkable child, Mrs. Martinez. The rest is just details. That evening, David personally drove Chloe home in his car. The apartment was in an older building, modest but clean. Maria met them at the door, still clearly ill but steady on her feet now, tears streaming down her face as she gathered Chloe into her arms. Thank you, she whispered to David over her daughter's head. Thank you for seeing her, for seeing us. Thank you, David replied, for reminding me what's important. The years that followed brought changes David hadn't anticipated. Maria proved to be an exceptional manager, organized, fair, beloved by the staff she supervised. But more than that, she and Chloe became part of David's life in unexpected ways. He found himself looking forward to Chloe's visits to the office when Maria would bring her after school. The little girl would do her homework in the break room, and sometimes David would take a few minutes away from meetings to help her with math or simply listen to her chatter about her day. On Chloe's 7th birthday, David hosted a party at his penthouse, the first celebration the apartment had seen since Grace died. His son flew in with his family, and David's grandchildren played with Chloe, filling the space with laughter and joy. "Dad," his son said quietly, watching David help Chloe blow out her candles. "You seem different, happier." David smiled. "A very wise little girl reminded me that wealth isn't worth much if all you do is count it. Your mother tried to teach me that for years. I finally learned." By Chloe's 10th birthday, she and David had developed a special tradition. Once a month, they'd have dinner meetings at various restaurants around the city. David would ask her opinion on things. What color should they paint the lobby in the new building? What kind of playground equipment would kids like? Chloe took these consultations seriously, offering thoughtful ideas that David actually implemented. Maria thrived in her position, eventually becoming director of operations for all Hartley properties. But she never forgot where she'd come from, and she made sure the company offered programs to help other single parents, flexible scheduling, child care assistance, scholarship funds. "You gave us a chance when we had nothing," she told David. "Now we can give that gift to others." On the 5th anniversary of the day Chloe had walked into his office, David held a small dinner at his favorite restaurant. Maria and Chloe were there, along with his own family and several employees whose lives had been changed by the programs Maria had implemented. "5 years ago," David said, raising his glass, "a little girl in an oversized apron walked into my office and changed my life. She was 6 years old, and she'd taken a bus across the city because her mother was sick and she wanted to help." His voice grew thick. "She reminded me that courage comes in all sizes, that love is the most powerful force in the world, and that sometimes the best business decision you can make is simply to see people, really see them, and recognize their worth." He looked at Chloe, now 11 and growing into a thoughtful, compassionate young woman. "Thank you, Chloe, for being brave, for showing up, for reminding a lonely old man what actually matters." Chloe, never one to let sentiment go without a response, grinned at him. "You're not that old, Mr. David, and you're not lonely anymore. Ild, you've got us." She was right. He had them, this chosen family that had formed from a moment of extraordinary courage and the choice to respond with kindness. Later, as guests were leaving, Maria pulled David aside. "I've never properly thanked you," she said. "Not just for the job, but for seeing Chloe, for seeing us, for treating us like we mattered." "Maria," David said gently, "you did matter. You always mattered. Your daughter just made sure I didn't miss it." He paused. "Grace, my wife, used to say that we're all walking around with our own stories, our own struggles. She said the greatest gift we can give each other is to really see those stories, to witness each other's humanity." He smiled. "Chloe made sure I saw yours, and in doing so, she saved me from becoming someone I never wanted to be." That night, alone in his penthouse but not feeling lonely, David looked at a photo on his desk. It was from Chloe's first visit. Margaret had snapped it on her phone without him noticing. In it, David was kneeling down to Chloe's level, and the little girl in her oversized apron was looking at him with absolute trust, her small hand holding out her mother's wrinkled resume. He'd kept that resume, framed it actually, hung it in his office where he could see it every day, a reminder that the most important business decisions aren't made in boardrooms or on spreadsheets. They're made in moments of choice, when you decide to see people rather than look past them, to help rather than turn away, to recognize that sometimes the smallest visitors bring the biggest blessings. Chloe Martinez had walked into his office wearing hope like an apron, carrying love like a resume, offering him a chance to be better than he'd been. And in accepting that offer, David had found his way back to the man Grace had always believed he could be. Sometimes the greatest success in life comes not from what you build, but from who you choose to see, to help, to welcome into your heart. And sometimes that choice walks into your office in pink shoes and an oversized apron, reminding you that compassion, courage, and kindness are worth more than any empire you could ever build.